Friday morning, September 19th, 2025. "50 years ago, my wife Judy and I tied the knot and got married at St. Mary's Church. So we are celebrating our 50th anniversary by doing things we like to do. Judy likes to take photos and I like to do videos, and I've done ice storms and floods and fires, but we've never done a drought, and that's what we're going to look at here. This is Corbeau Creek on the Ridge Road, about 1.25 miles from my place. Not a lot of wiggle room here, so we won't stay long, but this, as we can see, shows very little water running. No, it's actually not running, it's just sitting here, but the path to flow through is not very well defined here. A lot of rocks, and we're going to see a whole lot of rocks today. That's probably going to be our theme. And we'll now get a quick shot of Corbeau Creek as it passes the Matat Road. Move now to the Stetson Road, and look at the old markings in that flat rock right there. But this is what we're interested in here. This is Corbeau Creek still. You can see by the size of the culverts that this is an area that gets a lot of water. We're on the Lakeshore Road. Still looking at the Corbeau Creek. And again, nothing is flowing. In fact, it's been stagnant so long, the water is turning green down there. This is as it makes its way to the Great Chazy River. Now, there'll be people, a lot of people disappointed that I didn't get their favorite viewpoint, but this is going to take us many hours as it is just to get to the area we're going, and we don't yet have a definite travel plan. But this is Corbeau Creek on the Lakeshore Road in Champlain, and these culverts at certain times are overflowing, and right now this is what they look like. We're now along the Great Chazy River, and as you see, shoreline across the way, a lot of shoreline showing, a lot of shoreline on this side showing up. There are several river marinas here, and I'm sure this has had an impact on how busy or not busy they've been. We are now at the Great Chazy River boat launch, where the Great Chazy River meets Lake Champlain. Again, lots of shoreline showing. The old trees aren't floating very far today. And you got that green algae or whatever it is. I'm not going to speculate and say it is algae, but that green coloring over in the end, and you see stuff protruding. On the edge of the lake. So I would imagine you're proceeding with caution. Today, as I said, is the 19th, and the forecast shows maybe 1/4 of an inch rain. Today's a Friday. on Tuesday, maybe a quarter of an inch of rain in spots. And nothing again for the 10-day forecast, except maybe some showers a week from now. So this is only going to drop even more in the coming days. There are several of these signs remembering Captain de Chazy, who was killed somewhere in this area in 1666, and Chazy and the Chazy Rivers got their name. Don't see a lot of rocks here. This is the little Chazy River as it goes into Lake Champlain. See a lot of shoreline and see a lot of green on the surface, so I don't think it looks very inviting as far as hopping in and taking a dip, but this is what it looks like on the Lakeshore Road. And from here we're going to head back and toward Rouses Point. We're now just outside of Rouses Point, the end of the Stony Point Road, and taking a look at the breakwater. And a whole lot of shoreline. Being proud members of the Rouses Point Sportsman's Club, we've come out to the end of the Rouses Point Sportsman's Pier and looking out at Lake Champlain across to Alberg, Vermont. And from this vantage point in 1609, on July 4th, 1609, you would have seen Samuel de Champlain become the first European to set sail on these waters. Actually, I think he was in a canoe. And this lake eventually became named after Champlain. Then in about October 10th or 11th of 1776, the British fleet came through here and met Benedict Arnold at Valcour Island, and Arnold inflicted enough damage on them that they decided to go no further, and it was a crucial battle in the early days of the American Revolution. And on September 10th or 11th, the Battle of Valcour was October 11th, and the battle we're talking about now is September 11th, 1814, Battle of Plattsburgh. Again, I'm not sure when when the ships would have sailed through here, if it's the 10th or the 11th of September, but when their big battleship, the Confiance was destroyed, and a few other of their vessels were destroyed around Cumberland Head, they returned back to Canada. So that was a final crushing blow in the War of 1812, although there were some battles that took place, including the burning of the White House and the battle that took place around the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Most took place shortly thereafter, but this battle here is the one that was a turning point. And the British realized they were not going to cut through Lake Champlain and separate the colonies. The ruins we see are the old Rutland and Central Vermont, but we remember it mainly as the Rutland, at least I do, Railroad. Last train passed there in the early 1960s. And a new, still saying new, although it was the late 1980s that that bridge was put in, crossing Lake Champlain. So I am sure we're seeing much more of the ruins of the old railroad bridge than we would normally see. And this is what it looks like at the end of the Sportsman's Pier on this September 19th. We have driven past the bar restaurant known as Latitude 45 and come to the little closer view of the bridge where the village of Rouses Point used to have a beach for the kids to enjoy in the summer, and there's a whole lot more beach than there used to be, I'm sure, but they no longer use it as a public beach. 45th parallel, of course, circumnavigates the planet, and if the article I read online recently is accurate, by taking these few steps here north of the 45th parallel, we are now closer to the North Pole than we are to the equator. When we are on the other side of the 45th parallel, we are closer to the equator than we are to the North Pole. I haven't verified the accuracy of that, but I'm under the impression it's true. So the 45th parallel is the halfway point between the equator and the North Pole. And this is right to the entrance to the bridge, and a whole lot more shoreline than we're used to seeing. Now on the north side of the bridge, I came here so I can get a view of Fort Montgomery. There's a historical plaque here. Tells you all you need to know about the history of the fort. And it says the modern span behind you replaced that bridge in 1987. I knew it was the late 80s, but I didn't dare to hazard a guess for sure. We were there for that opening ceremony. But here's what the shoreline looks like here. Again, you can see a lot of extra shoreline. And I'm sure a lot more that fort is showing now than is normal for September of any particular year. So what's left of Fort Montgomery? Right near the Canadian border. When the original fort was built and was then abandoned, it was actually built in Canada, and they got that settled as far as the location. And then Fort Montgomery was built pretty close to where that original fort, known as Fort Blunder, was built. And it's been guarding our northern shores since the mid-1800s, mid-1800s or so. And so far it's working. Can't stay here long. We just had a dozen cars come from the Rouses Point area heading west. This is the bridge showing a great Chazy River as it heads toward the village of Champlain. We're near the South Street Road, and behind us is the Rapid Road. And traffic is heavy here. Cars are tooting, telling me to stay out of the way. We're off the roadside. We're off the road, but still a tight fit to get these videos here. This is heading into the village of Rouses Point. Actually, the river is heading out of the village of, village of Champlain, not village of Rouses Point. Heading out of the village of Champlain right here. We're now on River Street at Bill Earl Park. And as Judy pointed out, you can see bottom here in the village of Champlain. There's been lots of ice jams and floods through here over the years. This river doesn't rise, there'll be no danger of ice jams. Doesn't look like there's too many fish floating through. Again, we see a lot of shoreline. Up that direction is toward the museum, like the Samuel de Champlain Museum, and the Elm Street Bridge. And of course, Paquette Park is up by the gazebo over there. So this is what it looks like in downtown Champlain, a lot of shoreline. I'm going to say that over and over again. Now on the edge of Maiden Lane, a community garden has been here in the past. Not sure if there's one here still or what this growth is. I do know there's been a community garden here in past years. Put my thinking cap on, I think it was, by the way, there is a island over in that direction. It's normally an island, but it's not an island right now. It's all part of the mainland. I think it was 1975. I was working for the North Countryman. In the summer of '75, we had conditions very similar to this in the early going. And I got a young fellow named Bill Hogle to grab a stick and stand out here in the middle of the great Chazy River, making believe he was fishing. He was out there in ankle deep water, and that's pretty much what we're seeing right here on this September 19th. And so many rocks. And I guess if I'd paid more attention, I would have realized that the community garden is now a raised bed garden. So folks like me don't have to bend down. So a nice little gesture here. And they got park bench if people want to sit here and just watch the water go by. I'm now on that Route 9 bridge, and there's no standing room here whatsoever, so I can only be here till somebody starts heading down from the French Village area. But here's what we've got here. A trickle actually flowing through, look at that. A trickle flowing through amidst all these rocks. We've moved to the north side of the bridge now, here on Route 9, and looking toward the area where we were talking about before, on the end of Maiden Lane. And that island that is not an island this year. Move now to the Dubois Road and the Lawrence Paquette Bridge. A recognition of his public service from 1974 to 1989 as county legislator. He was serving the public for a lot longer than that. And here's the view of the water heading toward the village of Champlain. Well, apparently the bridge was dedicated in 1991. Chairperson was Melvin Bruno, Richard Perry, Transportation Committee, John J. Zerlo, it says. I think that's John H. Zerlo. Should be Area 1 legislator. And Luck Brothers and Frank Madden. But we just dedicated the building in Plattsburgh, the government center, to John H. Zerlo, and he was the county legislator. So, and of course, 30-year county clerk. So somehow they got that wrong. It's John H. Zerlo. Here it is, coming from Perry's Mills and heading toward the village. Again, just a trickle. We're now at a beautiful area in the town of Champlain known as the Frog Farm. We have lots of history on Hometown Cable, on our website regarding the Frog Farm. Now owned by the St. John family, the site, but obviously the dam and the river are not. This is coming from Perry's Mills and flowing into the village of Champlain. The train at Rutland that came through crossed right here, went on into the village and on into Rouses Point. A lot of rocks over that way. Water is still flowing, not to any great extent, but still flowing from the west, heading in this direction. Very peaceful, beautiful location here. And if you're just joining this video, my wife Judy and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary today. And we thought we'd spend a day doing things we like to do. She likes to take photos and I like to take videos of history. And although this drought is not yet a record breaker, it is certainly a drought in our North Country and worth recording. So we're spending the day driving around the North Country and enjoying each other's company and seeing some sights and sounds. We are now on the outskirts of beautiful downtown Perry's Mills. And it's a little more ominous in the distance here as I scan back and see all the extra shoreline we've gained. We're on the creek bridge where the creek and Dubois Road intersect and change. Dubois Road becomes the Creek Road, and across the bridge it's the Perry's Mills Road into Perry's Mills. Now we're going to be heading west. All that water you saw going over the Frog Farm dam has to trickle through here first. Again, you can see from looking through the water, it's not very deep here. Even some of the bottoms are green, even though there's water on top. Water flowing, a lot of dry area. And this is heading down the road toward the VFW area, Route 11. We may or may not stop before we get there. We'll see how easy our access is to the riverfront. Taking a little detour to the Southwick Road near, well, it used to be the Harvey Smith farm, and I believe it's owned by Mark Eddy. I'm not even sure what the name of this little creek is, but it does demonstrate how low the water is. Neither side of this road is pedestrian friendly. Very easy to, you get too close to just lose your footing and slide right through the bottom here. Not particularly a safe situation for this little bridge, but not a lot of traffic here, I'm sure. Here's what it looks like from the side coming from the west. Very picturesque, but not much water. We're now, as the bridge shakes with a tractor trailer going over it, an area known as the Twin Bridges and Route 11, very close to the Moores town line. This is one little tributary, that's the western tributary that's heading toward Perry's Mills. And as we can see on the eastern portion that's heading north, it's probably about 200 feet of what's basically an island here in the middle of the Great Chazy. That's why they had to build two bridges. And back in the olden days, it used to be more distinct. And this is the eastern portion pointing north. That's where we were. That's the eastern bridge, and there's the western bridge. And now we're still on the eastern side, coming from the southeast, and this swampy land here separates the two bridges and necessitates two bridges. Now in the western portion, and a lot of green growth underneath here, underneath the rocks here. And there's the area where the Great Chazy River splits. Again, we are on Route 11. We're just a 3 or 4 stones throw away from the St. John Road and Perry's Mills Road, and right next door to VFW Post 1418. Just barely in the township of Moores. This is on the La Valley Road by the Gagnon farm. Things are quiet. As always today, extra shoreline. But back 29 years ago, November, flood came through here. Flood of 96. And well, except for a few cattle that were on that highest part by the barn, Harry Gagnon's farm, everything else was washed away. Had dozens of cows washed away, washed downstream. Some were washed ashore, some I think they never quite located. So it looks peaceful, looks quiet. When spring comes, the waters here rise. You see a dry area right there. and just upstream, lots and lots of rocks. So this is on the edge of the town of Moores, town of Champlain to our left and Moores to our right. Getting closer to Moores, we're now on the Angelville Road looking west. Again, not very inviting. We're now where the Fee and the Letson Road become the other. Fee becomes Letson and Letson becomes Fee. Just outside of Moores. And this area here, when I was a kid, we'd come here, we'd get maybe 2 or 3 days a summer when we weren't busy doing farm work, and we'd swim in this area. Because there used to be a bridge right here off to La Valley Road. Across here, and that bridge got old and dilapidated and fell apart. They decided it wasn't worth rebuilding for the amount of traffic they get, and people just have to drive around into the village of Moores and then make their way back through this way. Well, this is what it looks like, kind of low. Tree logs washed up on shore, all everywhere we've looked. We've seen examples of that. So it's the La Valley Road, Fee Road bridge area from years past. And speaking of bridges, this is the bridge that takes you into the hamlet of Moores. Comes out at the intersection of Route 11 and Route 22, where Matt's Furniture used to be. And it's now just a walking bridge. And this is the view. What a nice view this is here. So it's off the Fee Road, and just a half a mile or so west of where we were. Oh, what a view with all the flat rocks being visible now. And this is the type of fencing they could use on that Southwick Road here, something to slow down people if they lost their balance. But anyway, this is what it looks like. Really spectacular view. You can tell from the green growth here that they haven't had water to swim in a while. And all this way, the water is making its way east toward the village of Champlain. And I suppose if I were thinner and braver, I would step onto this little sidewalk that adjoining the bridge here, facing west. There is some sort of dam right next to us, on the other side of this this fencing, and that's Route 22. That crosses into Moores, intersects, as we said, at the intersection of Route 11. It is my understanding that that is where the old railroad bridge came through and went up to the junction with the Rutland at the end of Maple Street that actually at the end of Depot Street, but on Maple Street. Now, very nice old railroad station there, owned by Chris Tremblay, and restored originally by Larry Marnes and left to Chris because he knew Chris would carry on his legacy. Not sure if we're going to get a view from that bridge over there because there wasn't much room on the side and no nearby parking area. So we will show you the view heading beyond it to the west. As you can see, a lot of the area is visible with very little water trickling through. We've decided there is room to stand here. This involves a little bit of walking to get to the bridge, but that's where we were moments ago. And this is what it looks like from the Route 22 bridge as the river flows east. But on the west facing side of the bridge, it's a far, far different view. Again, looks like a little tributary coming from that direction. Swampy area in the middle with the main flow coming through there. A lot of rocks showing drought conditions, September 19th, 2025. We've been out for about 5 hours thus far. We're going to probably do another hour of driving around, which isn't going to involve a lot of videoing because traveling and walking is taking up most of our time. But this is what it looks like on the Route 22 bridge in Moores. We are now on the Tappan Road, west of the hamlet of Moores, looking in an easterly direction and trying to count all the rocks we see. I think we've mentioned it already. We're going to mention it again. Our apologies to the areas we don't cover. There's just so many bridges and views that we can do in a day's time. This is the view from the Tappan Road Bridge heading in an easterly direction. And immediately across the road we see flat rocks heading off that direction, so we know the water sometimes flows from there. Got to hang on to your hat, kind of wind here. And this is coming from the west. It's this very small area where the water is trickling through. So we're pointing in the Moores Forks direction here. Now a quick riverside view from the Moores Camp Meeting Association area. Just wanted to get a quick shot here because I know we have a very peaceful and tranquil view here. And a lot of their members spend a lot of hours, I'm sure, sitting here and taking in Mother Nature. Now in Moore's Forks, near Para's garage, on the Woods Falls Road. And as you can see, the view looking east is a lot like what we've been seeing all day. And I'm going to change angles and see just how far up we can see around that corner. And there we go. And that little riverbank you see up there, that's off the Emery Road. And again, looking back in '96, there's a trailer there that was, the whole underlining of the trailer was washed away and it was just hanging. Half of it was on the surface of where it had been, and the other half was dangling over the river. That was back in '96, the flood of November '96. So a far different view than what we're seeing here today. Now looking in a westerly direction, trying to get an angle where we're not directly battling the sunshine. A lot of flat rock. The water is making its way through here. This is as far west as we're going to go. It's 4 o'clock. We've been 5.5 hours. We're going to go up to Woods Falls itself, see what we can see there, then probably end up with a couple of shots in Chazy. We're now at Woods Falls. We're on the bridge, pointing the camera generally in a northerly area, but that's of course north heading into the east. But really looks like there's nothing moving here, which is strange because there's water moving down below, so that water must be coming from other sources, because this is not showing any movement at all that I can see. This is the view pointing toward Moore's Forks. Moore's Forks is 2 miles away. Altona is 3 miles in and around that direction. They take a 90-degree turn up there. Moving over to the southern part, where this river is flowing basically from the west, but there is a trickle we can see, so it is trickling through here from this angle. And coming off what's known as Woods Falls, very, very slow amount of water. So that's coming from Altona, Ellenburg Center, Ellenburg Corners, basically Ellenburg Corners. So here is Woods Falls, and there isn't much falling here in Woods Falls today on this September 19th. We're in Chazy now. We did go past a couple of spots that we looked at and decided not to bother to record. The Corbeau Creek on McBride Road and Tracy Brook on Macadam Road. But we are on busy Route 9 in Chazy, And this is the trickle known as the Little Chazy River. And you can see from the size of the banks here, this is normally all water through here. This is normally all water, so we've got what looks like from up here about maybe a yard wide in that widest area here, and less than that, 2.5 feet or so up there, and even less than that up in that direction. So that's trickling in from the south, a Little Chazy River heading in a northeasterly direction, I would say, heading for Lake Champlain. And it looks like somebody decided to take a walk down there to get a closer view, and found out it was a little muddy, a little soft. We've moved to the other side of the bridge and spotted a blue heron. But not much water. Apparently there's some kind of dam that sends the water through that direction. And what's coming through here heading to the east is really not much. So we've moved over to our left, and not quite certain what this is all about. But whatever gathers here is all nice and green. I've lived here all my life and never really paid much attention to this this white building right here. So I don't know what this is all about. Why this dam is here, but the river is all but dried up here, the Little Chazy River in hamlet of Chazy. We are now just off the Route 9 area, next to the Chazy Public Library, and between Chazy Library and Stewart's. This is our view of the water that's heading toward the bridge that we just left. And looking at the little bridge put in by the county in '95, this time they got John Zerlo's name correct, John H. Zerlo. He was the chairman, so he got his name here along with the Area 3 and Area 4 representatives. And Bill Bingle, our good friend Bill Bingle, the late Bill Bingle, and a few other names on there. So this is the trickle coming under the bridge here. That's going to wrap up our coverage on this September 19th, 2025. As I said, my 50th wedding anniversary, so Judy and I decided we'd go somewhere where she could take pictures and I could do a video and spend some quality time together. So this is going to wrap it up. Again, final apologies for the places we didn't cover, but it's shortly after 5 right now, so 6.5 hours it took us to get this much. So viewer supported local television, Hometown Cable. If you appreciate what Hometown Cable does, we'd appreciate hearing from you. So as we said at the start, we've covered fires and floods and ice storms, And this is the first time we've, had to my memory, that we've covered a drought, and hopefully very shortly this will be in our history books and water will be flowing again in the North Country. Thanks for watching.